It's better to have loved and lost than to have been feared and killed. Salutations, Snowdrift County. This is your community news. Citizens, I am proud to announce that we are starting a whole new segment to our little news show. Every so often, we will take a break from the constant chaos of the community at large and just focus on one person and get an idea of what their mundane life is like, while everything around them is in constant entropy. We will be calling this new segment the Gray Spotlight. For the first ever spotlight, we'll be focusing on someone that we are all yet to know, Edward Germain. Edward and his family, wife Patricia and daughter Annie, found themselves here in Snowdrift County just last year, and have been living in the sheriff's tower in Bromdale since. He still believes that him and his family are in a range of mountains called the Rocky Mountains, in spite of objections from all of us citizens of this fair county, that the range of mountains we are in is called Appalachian, and none of us have ever heard of a range called Rocky, only hearing them described as such. While his family has been staying here, Ed and his wife started working at the Bromdale grocer until Trish finished her course in duplication and Ed was let go. After losing his job at the Bromdale grocer, he hasn't been seen much in the community. Now that we have finished with the known past of Edward Germain, let us now open the great eye. Let us see all things that Sathagwa sees. Praise be our chilling God, whom will allow us to connect to one more person, even if it's just for a day. The eye is now open to me, citizens. I can see all. Let us now see the world of Edward Germain. He doesn't seem to be doing much, citizens. Just watching TV in his and Trish's holding apartment alone. We're gonna cut to some other news while we wait for Ed to do something more interesting. Ooh, he's watching Temperance on Chillstream. Great show. Definitely worth checking out. However, since he does not seem to be doing much right now, let's put this story of Edward on hold and move on to the community at large. Barry Brahman is saddened to announce the closing of the Barry's Bargain Bin Bromdale location. For the past few months, the small store has been facing the near constant problem of people coming in and looking for work, just to quit the next week. This, along with a string of thefts, meant the store was no longer profitable to keep in business. In order to cut costs and keep focus on the more recently opened and more successful Preston location, this shutdown will be occurring within the month. I decided to investigate this story myself and seek out the last manager of the Bromdale Bargain Bin. They chose to stay anonymous, but they did have quite a few complaints about the job. A few examples: the pay was far too little for the work that is required. There was always an issue of being understaffed due to Barry not hiring enough workers, but the biggest complaint by far was the disrespectful customers. And for that last one, I should say, shame on you, citizens. We are all neighbors. You should know how to treat your neighbors, even if you haven't met them personally. As for the theft, the cameras in the bargain bin were working, and Sheriff Walters has your pictures. On the plus side, if anyone is looking to open up a store in one of the worst neighborhoods in Bromdale, there's a new storefront now open for lease. Feel free to pay a visit to Charlotte Barta at the local Cook, Barta, and Hyde office and she will get you started on your new store. Folks, let's check in on Mr. Germain real quick. Still watching Temperance. Doesn't really seem that invested in the show. His mind is on more important matters. The loss of work at the Bromdale grocer. His daughter in detention. His strange-looking car taken apart by the students of Blairsville Academy. He's unsure with just what to do now. I feel we should leave him with his thoughts for now, citizens, and move on to the next bit of news. I have an update from the County Senate, sent to us by Mayors Jeremy Cooper of Bromdale and Darrell Livingston of Preston. It seems the Senate is still locked in debate over what to do with the congregation of the Peaceful Meadow. They are now working on drafting a new bill to be voted on, to become the newest law of Snowdrift County. This bill is titled CPM 564. So far, there are very few details about this bill that are available to public knowledge. However, this is what has reached us. Bill CPM 564, in its current state, abolishes the public worship of any deity within county limits under penalty of exile. In its current state, if the bill were to become law, we'd all be forced out of our homes and sent into the cold to face the elements and our fates. I'm glad that the Senate has taken their time with this, rather than just blindly doing what they think is best. While this bill is still being drafted and taken to vote, Mayors Cooper and Livingston will continue to act in their stead within the community. Things have been holding together so far with them in charge, for the most part. All we can do is hope for the best. No. Everyone, Edward has begun doing something. Just moments ago, there was a rhythmic tapping coming from the wall of the holding apartment. A coded message from his daughter Annie, who is housed in the apartment next door after she was detained under suspicion of breaking into the Forbidden History section of the Bromdale Public Library. Annie is not allowed to leave her separate holding apartment until her trial, outside of official business, so the only way she can communicate with her parents is through these coded knocks on the wall. In her message, Annie told her father to turn on the radio. He knocks back, asking why, and she tells him about this broadcast. Apparently, he hasn't been listening to the radio for his news, and instead gets his information on the county from John Shipman and Gail Ism on Channel 6 News. While it's sad to hear, it's good to know that even a nearly convicted felon like Annie can even enjoy this news show. Edward goes to the radio alarm clock, provided in all the holding apartments in the sheriff's tower, and turns the radio on. Tuning it to our station, he hears my voice. He hears me describing what he is doing. He recoils in horror. Frantic, Edward begins searching the holding apartment for surveillance equipment. There has to be a camera or something, he thinks to himself, now even more terrified that I could even hear his thoughts. Relax, Edward. All is well. This is just the power of radio news. Don't you have anything like this where you are from? He disregards what I'm saying, unplugs the radio, cutting me off right here. No longer hearing my voice, he runs downstairs in the sheriff's tower. Before he can go out the front door, he checks in with Lorraine Geyer, whom the sheriff has hired to be a jailer for the tower. Behind Lorraine is another radio, tuned to this station. Edward asks if he could have permission to leave the tower, and Lorraine approves his leaving for an hour and a half and gets the proper paperwork. Edward listens nervously to the radio as he looks around himself. There is no surveillance gear, Edward. I am merely observing you through the all-seeing eye of Sithagwa, using the power of radio. There is no reason to fear. After Lorraine finishes the paperwork to permit Edward's leaving the sheriff's tower, he makes his way into the street. Where he is going, I shall leave until he reaches his destination. As Edward Germain runs down the street, let's take a look at the traffic. Edward still continues down the street. He is almost to his destination. He accidentally slips on a patch of ice. Picking himself up, he continues down the street. I believe I have enough time to report this strange story I've been hearing from my neighbors. Here in the town of Wardenclyffe, people have been reporting a strange man running through the town. No, it's not Aaron Rivers. This man is dressed in white, nearly blending into the freshly fallen snow that coats the hills of our small town. The suit he's wearing seems to be one piece and pure bleach white. He wears a cape with this outfit, and the whole ensemble is lined with multicolored gems covering the chest and cape. Witness accounts said that the suit has a very deep-cut collar, reaching down to his stomach. It can't be comfortable to wear that out in the cold, one witness accounted. If it weren't for his reddish skin and black pompadour, he would have gone unnoticed by the many people who have seen him so far. Because he has been described with reddish skin, much like the tan of the congregation of the Peaceful Meadow, an investigation is being conducted to see if he has any connection to the wayward cult. Alright, folks. Edward has reached his destination. He enters the Bromdale grocer. Brushing snow off himself, he looks around the store for his wife, Trish. He tries not to be distracted by my voice over the PA system, still narrating everything he does. He finds what he believes to be Trish, but when he tries to talk to her, the only thing that it replies with is static. It is merely a duplicate. While Trish had graduated from her course at Bromdale Public Schools for duplication, her duplicates are only capable of performing physical tasks and are still unable to communicate. She has been getting better though. Last time I went up to Bromdale, one of her duplicates actually greeted me. But back to Edward. Edward went through duplicate after duplicate, 3 in all, until he found the real Trish, the true woman that he is betrothed to. With a visible look of worry on his face, Edward approaches his wife and brings her attention to the radio playing through the PA system. What she first only heard as background noise was now clear. "Hello, Trish." Edward explains that this has been happening throughout our broadcast, how we've been following a day in his life. Trish becomes worried and calls over Jacob Mills, the manager. She tells Jacob what's going on and he tells them that he knows and that he listens to the show every night. Aw, thanks. Jacob takes Edward and Trish to the break room behind the coolers at the back of the store. He sits Edward down and gives him a nice cup of hot chocolate to calm him down while he and Trish return to their work. Before leaving, Jacob suggests to Ed that he just stay put for the time being. Edward Germain now sits in the break room behind the coolers of the Bromdale grocer. My voice is still narrating everything he's doing. As he takes a sip of his hot chocolate, he becomes relieved as I move on to the next story. Hank Arlo was released from Meredith Broxton Memorial Hospital. He only faced minor hypothermia after his exposure to the center of a snow devil, and having his normal skin tone completely restored. He was kept all this time due to the psychological effects of being caught by a snow devil. he was still shown to hold some worship of the goddess of the peaceful meadow. But outside of that, he was found to be mentally sound and was approved for release by the hospital staff. He is still barred from community activities for the time being, until he has proven himself no longer to be part of that wayward cult, the Congregation of the Peaceful Meadow. And now for a quick personal ad sent in by our listeners. Not gonna lie, folks, this one is actually a personal ad from me. I still had to go through everything to get this approved to go on air, but I could use the help of some of the bright minds in the county. Danielle has officially moved on to the 6th grade, skipping the 5th grade altogether. While they are a smart kid, like most of the grade genderless kids assigned to parentless citizens of this county, I worry that they would get overwhelmed once they go back into school. So, I'm looking for a volunteer tutor to help Danielle for about a month or so, before school starts up again. I'm fairly certain they can handle whatever curriculum will be coming their way. It hasn't changed much in Bromdale Public School since I was a kid. I just want to make sure they're ready. Even though I see them reading social science books all the time, I still think they might have issues in arithmetic. This is primarily a volunteer job. I can't do much in the way of payment, but you will have my deepest appreciation and my earnest thanks. And now, back to our spotlight on Edward Germain. Edward remains sitting in the break room behind the cooler at the Bromdale grocer. He begins to detest my voice as it now starts narrating his life once again. He sits there wondering when this will all be over. Soon enough, Edward. As he's sitting there trying to count away the minutes, Trish walks in the door. Her shift is up, and Jacob is currently counting down the safe. She attempts to comfort Edward, saying that this will probably be the last time this will happen, according to Jacob. She only says what was told to her, but Edward has his doubts. He wonders how his wife could take all this strangeness that has happened to them this past year. She just assures him that everything will be okay as long as they have each other, and that no one in this county means them any harm. Edward brings up that their daughter is under detention, and the sheriff won't let them see her for more than an hour a week. Trish just tells Edward to relax, and that Annie's trial cannot proceed until a lawyer can be provided for her. Jacob chimes in saying he's done with counting the safe and doing the paperwork, and tells Trish to clock out. She does so and returns to her husband. Edward is still worried about everything that has and is going to happen. Seeing this worry, Trish takes Edward's hand, kisses his cheek, as if to say that everything will be all right. Edward lets a small smirk out, and together, he and Trish walk into the snow-covered roads and return to the sheriff's tower. Well, citizens, the sky darkens. The eye is closing. We now leave the company of Edward Germain and return to our own, self-focused stories. May your stories always be interesting and full of life and love. Good night, Snowdrift County, and stay warm. Salutations Snowdrift is a Broken Unicorn Studios production, written and performed by Nicholas Gold. All music was provided by Kevin MacLeod. Check out his stuff at incompetech.com. Want to keep up with what we're doing? Feel free to subscribe and follow us on Facebook or Twitter. Have any comments or questions? Want to help out with the show? Send us an email at brokenunicornstudios@gmail.com. And thank you for listening.